You're watching the MMA Oracles Podcast, and now, presenting your host, Jack Moon.
This is the MMA Oracles Podcast, and I am your host, Jack Moon, back again with another episode here, the first episode after UFC 300, and we have a absolute shit card on deck here, so I'm just going to dive right into it and get through it as quickly as possible. First fight of the night is Gabriel Mowgli Benitez versus Mahashate Hayasar. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce his last name. Anyways, Benitez is 35 years old. He is 23-11 overall with 9 knockouts, 10 submissions, and 4 decisions. He is stepping in here on short notice for Anshul Jubli, who had to withdraw, I believe, with an injury. He is the Tough Latin America 1 semifinalist. He's picked up multiple regional titles over his career. He's got a great team behind him at AKA. He is currently 7-7 in the UFC, and the best wins of his career have been over Clay Collard, Jason Knight, and Humberto Bandené. On the other side, we have Mahashate, who is 24 years old. He is 9-3 overall with 4 knockouts, 1 submission, and 4 decisions. He is a silver medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling. He does have a decent team behind him at Edinburgh Fight Club. He's a really big lightweight with some knockout power, but he's currently 1-2 in the UFC. Best win of his career is that lone UFC victory over Steve Garcia. Mahashate is coming in here as a minus 200 favorite, with Benitez coming back as a plus 170 underdog. There's currently 1,809 Tapology votes on the fight. 82% of those are favoring Mahashate, with 69% taking him to win by knockout. Of the 18% taking Benitez, 41% are taking him to win by knockout. Looking at this fight, as I broke it down, Mahashate just really isn't that good. I'm surprised to see him as big of a favorite as he is here. His opponents before the Contender Series and UFC have a current combined record of 38-65-1. His Contender Series opponent that he beat had really only beaten up trash opponents up to that point, and then he's gone on to beat one bum since. So, I mean, that guy, we don't really know how good he is because he's only fighting trash competition, and he lost to Mahashate. On the other side, Benitez has faced and beaten better competition than Mahashate's ever seen. So he's coming in here on short notice. So it is a pretty big stylistic switch from Anshul Jubli to Gabriel Benitez. So I'm not sure how well Mahashate is going to be prepared for that. Benitez has really solid low kicks. I see him just being better everywhere, really. He throws more volume. He's more accurate. He's better defensively. He's the better wrestler and the better grappler as well. Benitez does have some suspect defense. He's also 35 years old. He's a bit of a journeyman at this point, so durability is also a little bit of a question. If Mahashate catches him early, wouldn't be surprised, but technique for technique, I do think Gabriel Benitez is the better fighter. So I am going to take the underdog in the first fight of the night here. I'm going to go with Gabriel Benitez by unanimous decision for the official pick. Up next on the card, we have a women's fight between Ivana Petrovic and Na Dragon Girl Liang. Petrovic is 29 years old. She is 6-1 overall with 3 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 1 decision. She is the former Aries FC champ. She's a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's currently 0-1 in the UFC. Best win of her career has been over, I'm sure I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Ewelina Wozniak. On the other side, Liang is 27 years old. She is 19-7 overall with 6 knockouts, 11 submissions, and 2 disqualifications. She's a finisher, has stopped all of her pro wins. She's picked up multiple regional titles, but she went 0-1 in Bellator, and she's currently 0-3 in the UFC. Best win of her career was early career win over Liana Jojua. Petrovic is coming in here as a minus 500 favorite, with Liang coming back as a plus 380 underdog. There's currently 1,786 Tapology votes on the fight. 94% of those are favoring Petrovic, with 45% taking her to win by decision. Of the 6% taking Liang, 36% are taking her to win by decision. Don't know why you'd be taking Liang to win by decision. She's never won a decision in her entire career. And she's really just not a great fighter. If she does win this fight, it'll be because she was able to catch Petrovic and put her away. So don't like those 36% taking her to win by decision. Not sure I understand that pick. Really, Liang, she just kind of sucks. She's never beaten any good competition. She lost her only fight in Bellator. She can't win in the UFC. She's 0-3. She does fight wild and entertaining. She's always looking for that finish, and she'll engage in brawls and wild scrambles. So I think that's what's keeping her around here. But it looks like this should be the final nail in the coffin here for her UFC career. Petrovic is the much cleaner fighter. She has better technique, and I think she's going to be able to exploit the aggression of Liang as well. Land some solid counters. Keep her off balance. Maybe take her to the floor. Really just control the fight. Liang, like I said, she is like an all-offense fighter, but she's extremely poor defensively. She does tend to kind of gas herself out a bit too. And I think once she does that, Petrovic will be able to take over and put her away. So for the official pick, give me Ivana Petrovic by knockout in the second round. For the next fight on the card, we have another pairing here that was put together on short notice as James Goku Lontop is taking on Chris Taco Padilla. Lontop is 24 years old. He is 14-2 overall with 7 knockouts, 1 submission, and 6 decisions. He is the former FFC champ, as you can tell by the ridiculous FFC tattoo he has on his neck. He is currently on a 12-fight winning streak. He did earn his contract on the Contender Series, and he's making his UFC debut here. He will be taking on Padilla, who is 28 years old. He is 13-6 overall with 7 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 2 decisions. He is making his UFC debut as well here on short notice as he is replacing. This is actually the third scheduled opponent for James Lontop. As he was originally supposed to face Lando Venata, who pulled out, and then he was replaced by Gabe Green, who also pulled out, and now in steps Padilla. Padilla went 0-1 in Bellator. Best win of his career has been over Justin James, which was in his last fight. Lontop is currently a minus 350 favorite, with Padilla coming back as a plus 255 underdog. There's currently 830 Tapology votes on the fight. 96% of those are favoring Lontop, with 60% taking him to win by knockout. Of the 4% taking Padilla, 61% are taking him to win by knockout. At least everyone seems to be expecting a finish in this fight, so should be pretty entertaining. Padilla just really isn't a good fighter. I mean, you look at his record, he's 13-6 overall. He's mainly fought a bunch of bums. He really only seems to be getting this chance in the UFC as a last resort. You know, we had Lando in here, and then we had Gabe Green, and it's like, who can we get on this such short a notice? Oh, this guy steps in. On the other side, Lontop looks like a really solid prospect in my eyes. He's very well put together. He can really do it all. And I think once he settles into this fight, shakes off any UFC jitters, starts to get a read on Padilla, he'll start to really let things go and put him away. So for the official pick, gave me James Lontop by knockout in the second round. Scraping the bottom of the barrel for this next matchup, we have Marnik, the sawed-off Savage Man, taking on Ketlin Esquidinha Souza. Man is 31 years old. She has 3 knockouts, 1 submission, and 2 decisions on her record. She is a former FFL champ, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She went 3-0 in LFA, but she went 0-1 on Contender Series, and she's also 0-1 in the UFC. Best win of her career so far has been over Pauline Matheus. On the other side, Souza is 28 years old. She is 13-4 overall with 8 knockouts, 1 submission, and 4 decisions. She is the former Invicta champ. She picked up 4 other regional titles outside the UFC. She went 2-0 in Invicta, but is currently 0-1 in the UFC. Souza's coming into this fight as a minus 345 favorite, with Mann coming back as a plus 275 underdog. There's currently 1,734 Tapology votes on the fight. 94% of those are picking Souza, with 85% of those taking her to win by decision. Of the 6% taking Mann, 65% of those are taking her to win by decision. This is a pretty shit fight. I expect it to be pretty boring. Neither fighter really has a lot of upside, so it's like, who cares really who wins? Mann just doesn't look like she's a UFC caliber fighter. She's also a little bit undersized. I could see Souza hanging around the bottom of this division for a little bit. Like I said, I don't see much upside in either fighter here. But I do think Souza can make a little spot for herself at the bottom of this division. So Souza's also younger. She's the bigger fighter. She's faced better competition. She has more overall experience and just better technique everywhere. So for the official pick, give me Ketlin Souza by unanimous decision. Next up on the card, we have a heavyweight pairing between Dontale Lord Kong Mays taking on Chow Bigfoot Machado. Mays is 32 years old. He is 10-6 overall. Great record there with 4 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 3 decisions. He did pick up a regional title outside the UFC. He does have a great team behind him at Jackson Wink. He did go 1-0 in LFA, 2-1 on the Contender Series, but he's currently 3-4 in the UFC. Best wins of his career have been over Muhammad Usman, Ricardo Prezel, Josh Parisian, and Andrei Arlovsky. On the other side, Machado is 29 years old. He is currently 8-2-1 overall with 4 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 2 decisions. He is the former BFL champ. I think he had like 5 title defenses there as well. BFL is a decent promotion in Canada, not PFL. This is B as in, I believe it's Battleground Fight League. They've produced a couple decent fighters, so he did make his way up there. He did go 1-0 on Contender Series as well, but he's currently 0-1 in the UFC. Best wins of his career have been over Chris Larson and Kevin Zaflarski. Machado is coming into this fight as a minus 125 favorite, with Mays coming back as a plus 105 underdog. There is currently 1,767 Tapology votes on the fight, with 56% of those favoring Machado. Of those, 62% are taking him to win by decision. Of the 44% taking Mays, 61% are taking him to win by decision. I'm really not confident picking either fighter here. I am a little bit surprised to see Machado, who's 0-1 in the UFC and a lot less proven, as a betting favorite and being favored by the fans. But I do actually slightly agree with that. I've seen Machado making improvements in his overall game lately. He looks like the cleaner striker, better defense, a little more technical. He pressures pretty well, and Mays struggles with that a lot. Mays does have a lot more experience, and he's got big knockout power. And while he's not the greatest athlete, he will throw surprising things, almost like Derek Lewis does, where he'll throw like random flying knees or jump kicks, things like that. So Mays will throw those in there as well. But like I said, he doesn't do too well off his back foot, and I think Machado will be able to put him there, put him on his back foot. I think Machado likes to pressure, throw more volume, and has been putting combinations together pretty well recently. Mays has that knockout power, so he could land a counter and just put him out. But Machado is going to be throwing more volume, so I do expect him to win the rounds. And that's kind of how I see this fight going. Either Mays is going to catch him and put him away, or he'll just get out volumed by Machado, who will end up winning the rounds. Like I said, don't have a lot of faith in either fighter, but I am slightly favoring Machado, as I have seen some improvement in his game lately. I do think he has more upside in this division, so I will lean his way. So for the official pick, give me Chao Machado by unanimous decision. For this next fight on the card, I did kind of go back and forth with it. It's a very close fight, but still not a great fight. As Austin Thud Hubbard is taking on Mikhail Mad Dog Figlak. Hubbard is 32 years old. He is 15-7 overall with 4 knockouts, 3 submissions, and 8 decisions. He is the former LFA champ. He was a Tough 31 finalist. He is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He went 2-0 in LFA. He's currently 3-5 in the UFC. His best wins of his career have been over Charles Radke, Kilias Mota, Max Roskop, Dakota Bush, and Julian Lane. On the other side, Figlak is 27 years old. He is currently 8-1 overall with 4 knockouts and 4 decisions. He did pick up a regional title outside the UFC and then went 6-0 in Cage Warriors, but he's currently 0-1 in the UFC. Best wins of his career so far have been over Oban Elliott and Agi Sardari. Figlak's coming into this fight as a minus 155 favorite, with Hubbard coming back as a plus 130 underdog. There is currently 1,781 Tapology votes on the fight. 69% are favoring Figlak, with 83% of those taking him to win by decision. Of the 31% taking Hubbard, 82% of those are taking him to win by decision. Again, I am surprised to see a less proven fighter who's 0-1 in the UFC as the betting favorite. Similar to that last fight on the card between Mays and Machado. But again, I do understand it. Hubbard was extremely disappointing in his last outing. He got to the finals of Tough 31. I believe he was favored to win that fight. He was winning that fight, and then he just completely collapsed. He fell right into the game of Kurt Holobaugh, went right into his grappling, and lost by submission. It was just a complete collapse. He had everything going for him, and then just completely gave it up. So hard to trust him after that. But Hubbard is decent offensively. Like I said, he was winning that fight at the start, but he's bad defensively, and he has bad fight IQ. I mean, that was just a poor decision-making on his part also led to that loss. I do think there is some value in Hubbard as an underdog here. I believe he could capitalize on potential ring rust for Figlak. Figlak, he made his UFC debut. He lost to Fareed Zayam, but that was almost a year and a half ago, and he hasn't fought since. So I do expect Hubbard to have some success early in this fight. He does throw some good combinations. He has some decent wrestling. He pressures pretty well. When he's going forward and being offensive, that's when he's at his best. But like I said, his defense is pretty extremely lacking. For Figlak, he's really unproven. I don't really trust him either. Like I said, I am kind of surprised to even see him being favored here, especially with 70% of the fan vote. But he does definitely have more upside. He is the younger fighter. He is the better striker. If he can shut down the takedowns of Hubbard and put him on his back foot, then he's going to take this fight over big time. So we're really going to have to see. I think that first round, if Hubbard can really take the momentum and run away with it and maybe even do some big damage, then I think he could win the rest of this fight. If Figlak is able to kind of, get his timing a little bit, get settled in after the long layoff, get back in there, I think he can start to come back and take over in the later rounds. Maybe even get a finish, because Hubbard is bad defensively, and once he starts to collapse, he collapses fast. So I am going to go with the younger fighter with more upside again. Stick with the favorite in this fight, but it's one I'm avoiding betting-wise. I I don't trust either guy here as far as I can throw him. So give me Mikhail Figlak by unanimous decision as the official pick. Headlining the preliminary card for this event as two veterans of the sport, as Ronnie Yaya is taking on Victor La Mangosta Henry. Yaya is 39 years old. He is 28, 11, and 1 overall. He is a two-time gold medalist world jiu-jitsu champion, one-time ADCC gold medalist, a fifth-degree black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He's also a black belt in Muay Thai, which is pretty surprising because we really never see this guy even try to strike. He went 4-3 in WEC. He's currently 13-5-1 in the UFC, and the best wins of his career have been over Mark Hominick, Eddie Wineland, Mike Brown, Josh Grisby, Mizuto Hirota, Masanori Kinhara, Matthew Lopez, Michinori Tanaka, and Kyung Ho Kong. On the other side, we have Henry, who is 36 years old. He is currently 23-6 overall with 6 knockouts, 8 submissions, and 9 decisions. He picked up 3 regional titles outside the UFC, the best of which was probably the Deep title. He is a silver medalist in catch wrestling world champions. He is a black belt in Taekwondo, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got a great head coach behind him in Josh Barnett. He went 2-0 in Risen, and he's currently 2-1 in the UFC. Best wins of his career so far have been over Masakatsu Ueda, Anderson Dos Santos, Kyler Phillips, Denis Lavrentiev, Yuki Motoya, Masanori Kinhara, Houni Barcelos, and Tony Gravely. Henry's coming into this fight as a big favorite at minus 500, with Yaya coming back as a plus 380 underdog. There's currently 1,829 Tapology votes on the fight. 91% of those are favoring Henry, with 71% taking him to win by decision. Of the 9% taking Yaya, 46% of those are taking him to win by decision. Honestly, it's not a great fight. I do expect this to most likely go to decision, as do most of the fans on Tapology there. These are two fighters who are mainly grapplers. I expect it to be somewhat boring. Yaya really has a super boring style anyway. He fights somewhat comparable to Damian Maia, where he'll just stick to his opponent like glue and never let go, but he's never able to actually do anything. Like, sometimes he gets a submission, other times he just kind of controls the person and is just holding them for 15 minutes, and then he wins based off the other person wasn't able to do anything because he was holding on to him. It's extremely boring to watch. Like I said, I'm surprised that the guy is even a black belt in Muay Thai. We don't really see him use his striking very much at all, and when he does, it's not good. Henry is definitely the better striker. Yaya is getting old. He's 39. I mean, Henry's only 36, so he's a little old as well. But Yaya's durability is definitely in question. He did just get knocked out by Montel Jackson in his last fight. Wouldn't be surprised if Henry puts him away either, but Henry's not. I mean, he's got 6 knockouts, but he's not like known as a big knockout guy. He trains under Josh Barnett. He competed in catch wrestling. He's kind of a grappler himself, so I do expect him to be able to defend the grappling of Yaya. I think he's probably the younger, bigger, stronger guy, so I think he can keep Yaya off of him and kind of beat him up with the striking a bit. Like I said, I don't really expect the finish, though, so I just kind of expect Henry to be cautious, not want to get taken down, pick his shots on the feet, and this to be a really slow-paced 15 minutes of kind of rinse and repeat of that. And so that doesn't look good for Yaya, in my opinion. I think for Yaya to win, he would have to get this fight to the floor and get top control. And I just don't know if he is able to do that anymore at 39 years old. With as many fights as he's had, he does seem like a kind of a washed version of himself. So for the official pick, give me Victor Henry by unanimous decision. Opening up the main card, we have arguably the most exciting fight on the entire card, as Tim the Dirty Bird Means is taking on Uros the Doctor Medic. Means is 40 years old. He is 33, 15, and 1 overall with 20 knockouts, 5 submissions, and 8 decisions. He is the former 3-division KOTC champ. He is 15 and 12 currently in the UFC, and the best wins of his career so far have been over Bobby Green, Diego Lima, John Howard, Alex Garcia, Thiago Alves, Mike Perry, Nicholas Dalby, and Andre Fialho. On the other side, Medic is 31 years old. He is 9 and 2 overall with 7 knockouts and 2 submissions. He is a finisher, stopped all of his pro wins. He's a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, an orange belt in Judo. He's got a great team behind him at King's MMA with head coach Rafael Cordero. He went 1-0 in the Contender Series. He's currently 3-2 in the UFC, and his best wins have been over Elon Cruz, Omar Morales, and Matthew Semmelsberger. Medic is coming into this fight as a minus 310 favorite, with Means coming back as a plus 250 underdog. There's currently 1,827 Tapology votes on the fight. 82% of those are favoring Medic, with 69% of those taking him to win by knockout. Of the 18% taking Means, 54% of those are taking him to win by decision. I'm not surprised to see Medic as the favorite, but I am surprised to see him be so heavily favored. I do see this fight being a little bit closer than that. Means has way more experience. He's a crafty and dangerous veteran who's also extremely durable. He's only ever been stopped twice by knockout in his career. Once was to Nico Price in 2019, and I mean, we've seen Nico Price. That guy hits super hard. He knocked out, I think it was Randy Brown. He knocked out with punches while on his back on the mat. So that guy hit super hard. And then his other loss was an injury, and it was an injury TKO in his third pro fight in 2004. So the guy's super durable. He's dangerous in the clinch. He can he has a ton of experience, and he knows how to drag fighters into fighting his type of fight. So definitely a challenge for Medic here. So I am surprised to see him that heavily favored. It seems like most are expecting Medic to be able to use his youth and athleticism to land shots early and put Means away. But like I just said, Means is super durable. So what if Means is still there and this fight goes into the second and third rounds? How's Medic going to look at that point? I really don't like Medic as that big of a favorite, but I am still leaning towards picking him. The 9-year age gap is a big difference there. I don't expect Medic to get the finish, honestly. I do expect Means to have his moments in this fight, especially, like I said, if he can kind of lure Medic into fighting a Tim Means Dirty Bird type of fight, dirty boxing in the clinch against the cage. I can definitely see Means having success. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw another late finish. We just saw Means get a third-round finish over Andre Fialho. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him do something similar here. I think there's two big questions going into this fight. One, how much does Means have left in the tank? He's 40 years old. This is like I think it's his 50th pro fight, something like that. Might even be over 50. And then the other question is, does Medic really belong at welterweight? We saw this guy fighting at lightweight before. He took a short notice fight at welterweight, and then he beat Matthew Semmelsberger in that late notice fight, and then he stayed at welterweight and ended up losing by submission to Oralba in his last outing. So those are the questions we're going to get answers to in this fight. And yeah, I'm still leaning towards Medic. I think he'll be able to do enough damage early to bank that first round. I think Means will start a little bit slow. I want to say that Medic will still be able to land some big shots and get the second round as well. But I do expect Means to still be there and come back and possibly even have a strong third round. So I could see it going 29-28 to Medic. And that is going to be my official pick. I am going to go for the official pick. Give me Uros Medic by unanimous decision. For the next fight on the card, we have Jonathan JSP Pierce taking on David Silent Assassin Onama. Pierce is 31 years old. He is 14-5 overall with 9 knockouts, 2 submissions, and 3 decisions. He is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got a great team behind him at Fight Ready MMA. He went 1-0 in the Contender Series, and he's currently 5-2 in the UFC. His best career wins so far have been over Kai Kamaka, Omar Morales, Christian Rodriguez, Makwan Amirkhani, and Darren Elkins. On the other side will be Onama, who is 29 years old. He is 11-2 overall with 7 knockouts and 4 submissions. He is a finisher, has stopped all of his pro wins. He is the former FAC champ, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blue belt. He's got a great team behind him as well at Glory MMA and Fitness, and he is currently 3-2 in the UFC. His best wins of his career so far have come over Gabriel Benitez, Garrett Armfield, and Gabriel Santos. Pierce is coming into this fight as a minus 180 favorite, with Onama coming back as a plus 150 underdog. There is currently 1,813 Tapology votes on the fight, with 56% of those favoring Pierce. Of those, 77% are taking him to win by decision. Of the 44% taking Onama, 76% of those are taking him to win by knockout. Onama is obviously super dangerous, finished all of his pro wins, and Pierce has been finished in 4 of his 5 losses as a pro. So this is a bit of a toss-up. That being said, Pierce does have a similar style to the 2 opponents that have defeated Onama so far, which were Mason Jones and Nate Landwehr. Guys that can put a lot of pressure on him, put a lot of volume on him, and wrestle him. And that's Pierce's game entirely. So I do like that for Pierce. Onama has never won a decision. So I think that's really going to be the story of this fight, is if Onama can catch and finish Pierce in between losing rounds to him. I don't expect Onama to win any rounds here unless he hurts him and, can't put him away, and then we get to the end of a round. But I do think if Onama can't get the early stoppage, the likelihood of him winning this fight is going to continue to drop, as he's only ever scored 1 third-round finish, and it was against a bum. So if it gets to the 3rd round, it's probably not going to be looking good for Onama. I do expect Pierce to keep getting stronger the longer the fight goes, too. He shoots for a lot of takedowns. He wrestles a lot, and I just don't think he's ever going to let Onama get anything off. I think we're going to see Onama kind of stuck in first gear here as Pierce just wrestles him, puts pressure on him, out-volumes him, and racks up the rounds. And like I said, I think Onama kind of has a puncher's chance, and we've only seen Pierce get knocked out once. I don't see Onama does have 4 submissions, but I don't see him submitting Pierce, even though, most of Pierce's losses are by submission. I just don't know if Onama's the type of guy to get that done. So, I don't see Onama pulling off the finish. So I do like Pierce in this fight. For the official pick, give me Jonathan Pierce by unanimous decision. Up next on the card, we have another heavyweight pairing, and this one is bound to end in a knockout, so don't blink, as we have Austin Lane taking on Jonata Diniz. Lane is 36 years old. He is 12-4 overall with 11 knockouts and 1 submission. He is a finisher, has stopped all his pro wins. He's a former NFL player. He picked up 3 regional titles outside the UFC, but he is currently 0-1 in the LFA. He went 1-1 on Contender Series, and he's 0-1 in the UFC. Best wins of his career so far have been over Juan Adams and Richard Jacoby. On the other side, Diniz is 32 years old. He is 6-0, undefeated, with all 6 of his wins coming by knockout. He is a finisher, obviously, as well. He is a 3-time kickboxing world champion, a black belt in Muay Thai, a black belt in kickboxing. He went 1-0 on Contender Series, and the best win of his career so far was that Contender Series victory over Eduardo Neves. Deniz is coming into this fight as a minus 230 favorite, with Lane coming back as a plus 190 underdog. There's currently 1,842 Tapology votes on the fight, with 90% of those favoring Deniz, and of those 90%, 89% are taking him to win by knockout. Of the 10% taking Lane, 69% are taking him to win by knockout. It seems like pretty much everyone's counting Lane out, but he's a live underdog in this fight. He's a guy that you can really never count out. Deniz is obviously the better technical striker, but Lane is such an explosive athlete, and he really only needs one punch to change this fight in his favor. Lane is a brawler. He's willing to throw down. He's going to be swinging for the fences. So if he lands, that fight's going to be over and he's going to win. So him being such a big fighter and such an explosive athlete, I think if he learns some wrestling, he could be a serious force in this division. If you just look at the way he's built, I really don't understand these NFL guys that, they come in to MMA and they're trying to box. It's like, you're NFL guys, you're used to tackling people. How about you wrestle and, use that tackling wrestling type of style to put people on the mat, and then your giant size to not let them ever get back up and just pound them out. I think if he adopted that more type of style, that he would have more success in the division. The problem is he's really never shown any indication that he'll do that. He's a guy that's going to throw down on the feet. One of his favorite fighters was Kimbo Slice, street type brawler. So I think that's what we're going to get out of him here. It is still a style that can win him this fight. He does have a reach advantage. He is fast and explosive, and like I said, all he needs is one, but Deniz is the more technical striker. I do think Deniz is the one that'll be able to pressure forward in this fight as well. Whoever lands first is really going to win this fight. So I am going to go with the more technical striker, who probably has a little bit better defense as well, in Deniz. But like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if Lane catches him. I do see a lot of potential in Lane. I think if he changed his style, maybe changed his fight camp, he would definitely have more success. But as it stands, Deniz is the favorite, and for good reason. So for the official pick, give me Janata Deniz by knockout in the first round. Up next on the main card, we have a pairing between top-ranked women's flyweights, as Ariane Queen of Violence Lipski is taking on Killer Karine Silva. Lipski is 30 years old. She is 17-8 overall with 6 knockouts, 4 submissions, and 7 decisions. She is the former KSW champ. She is a black belt in Muay Thai, a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she has a great team behind her at King's MMA. She went 5-0 in KSW. She's currently 6-5 in the UFC, and the best wins of her career so far have been over Diana Belbizia, Luana Carolina, JJ Aldrich, Melissa Gatto, and Casey O'Neill. On the other side, Silva is 30 years old as well. She is 17-4 overall with 8 knockouts and 9 submissions. She is a finisher, has stopped all of her pro wins. She is a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She went 1-0 on the Contender Series, and she's currently 3-0 in the UFC. Best wins of her career so far have been over Poliana Botelho, Ketlin Souza, and Marina Moroz. Silva's coming into this fight as a minus 155 favorite, with Lipski coming back as a plus 130 underdog. There's currently 1,853 Tapology votes on the fight. 76% are favoring Silva, with 63% of those taking her to win by submission. Of the 24% taking Lipski, 73% are taking her to win by decision. I do see this as a pretty good fight. I think the winner of this is going to be moving up towards the title picture in this division. Do you think it basically boils down to a striker versus grappler pairing? Lipski's going to want to keep this on the feet. Silva's going to want to get it to the mat. Lipski does have decent takedown defense, but her ground game, it says that, they're both purple belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I definitely think that Silva is the much better grappler than Lipski. I think Lipski doesn't have very great grappling defense when she gets to the floor, so I think she would be in a lot of trouble if Silva can get her down. On the other side, I don't think Silva would really win prolonged striking exchanges on the feet, but I do think her striking defense is good enough to keep her out of danger and help set up her takedowns, and her striking's competent enough to where she can slightly be competitive for as long as she needs to be. Whereas, like I said, I don't think if Lipski gets to the floor, she's going to be in big trouble. So I am favoring Silva in that regard. Lipski's been working on her grappling. We saw her submit Casey O'Neill in her last outing. But honestly, I think that's just going to even lend itself more to the problems that she's going to face in this fight, because her grappling's been improving, so she's going to have a little more confidence there. But grappling with Karine Silva is going to be a big mistake. So she may be a little bit too comfortable grappling with her. We'll end up on the mat. Honestly, I see Karine Silva getting it done early here. I think, like I said, I don't think if Lipski gets to the floor, I don't think her defense is going to hold up at all. I think Silva will be able to find something and lock it up and get it done. So, yeah, I think Karine Silva is going to have another impressive performance here. For the official pick, give me Karine Silva by submission in the first round. In the co-main event of the evening, we have a light heavyweight pairing between Ryan Superman Spann taking on Bogdan Zarevich Guskov. Spann is 32 years old. He is 21-9 overall with 6 knockouts, 12 submissions, and 3 decisions. He is the former LFA champion, a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got a great team behind him at Fortis MMA. He went 3-1 in LFA, 1-1 on Contender Series, and he's currently 7-4 in the UFC and ranked within the top 15 at light heavyweight. The best wins of his career so far have been over Alex Nicholson, Emiliano Sordi, Luis Henrique, Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, Devin Clark, Sam Alvey, Misha Sturkanov, Ian Kutlaba, and Dominic Reyes. On the other side, Guskov is 31 years old. He is 15-3 overall with 13 knockouts and 2 submissions. Guy is a finisher, stopped all of his pro wins. He is a master of sport in boxing, a master of sport in MMA, a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Uzbekistan national kickboxing champion. He's got a good team behind him at Gore MMA, and he's currently 1-1 in the UFC. The best win of his career so far has been over Zach Palga, that one UFC win. Spann is coming into this fight as a minus 205 favorite, with Guskov coming back as a plus 170 underdog. There is currently 1,864 Tapology votes on the fight. 59% are taking Spann to win, with 59% of those taking him to win by knockout. Of the 41% taking Guskov, 82% are taking him to win by knockout. In my eyes, Spann absolutely should win this fight, but his poor fight IQ and poor defense really make this a toss-up. Guskov is dangerous on the feet. He's going to come out swinging, and Spann is really likely to engage him on the feet for longer than he should. Spann has all the tools to win, but he seems to just find himself fighting into his opponent's games and fighting into their strengths, so it wouldn't shock me if he ends up somehow walking into the big shots from Guskov and getting knocked out early. That being said, like I mentioned, he does have all the tools to win this fight, especially if he gets the fight to the floor. I know I mentioned that Guskov's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I don't know how his ground game looks pretty awful. He got submitted by Volkan Oezdemir. and Spann is much more dangerous than that on the ground. So I think if Spann gets it there, he should be able to dominate and lock up a submission. I think he'll know that Guskov's only kind of path to victory is on the feet as well. With Spann needs this win desperately. He's coming off a pair of losses. If he loses to a guy like Guskov, basically start packing it up. His days at the top of the division are over. His career is on the tail end. Nobody's going to be looking at him as a real contender anymore. So I think he's going to know that. I think his coaches are going to know that. His coaches are high level as well. So I expect them to drill it in, take Guskov to the mat early, lock up that submission, and get this fight over with. Whether or not he'll do it with his fight IQ and defense, like I said, it's really a toss-up. Wouldn't be shocked if Guskov catches him, but Spann is the much technically better fighter, at least offensively, so I will stick with him here. For the official pick, give me Ryan Spann by submission in the first round. It's time for the terrible main event of this card as Matheus Nicolau is taking on Alex Perez. Nicolau is 31 years old. He is 19-3-1 overall with 5 knockouts, 5 submissions, and 9 decisions. He is a tough Brazil 4 semifinalist, a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's got a great team behind him at Nova União. He is currently 7-2 in the UFC, and the best wins of his career so far have come over Bruno Correa, John Moraga, Louis Smolka, Manel Kape, Tim Elliott, David Dvorak, and Matt Schnell. On the other side, Perez is 32 years old. He is currently 24-8 overall with 5 knockouts, 7 submissions, and 12 decisions. He is the former Tachi Palace champ. He went 1-0 on Contender Series, and he's currently 6-4 in the UFC. The best wins of his career so far have been over Eric Shelton, Jose Shorty Torres, Mark De La Rosa, Jordan Espinoza, and Hussier Formiga. Nicolau is coming into this fight as a minus 185 favorite, with Perez coming back as a plus 155 underdog. There is currently 1,880 Tapology votes on the fight. 88% of those are favoring Nicolau, with 76% of those taking him to win by decision. Of the 12% taking Perez, 56% of those are taking him to win by decision. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if this fight gets canceled, even all the way up to fight night. It's currently Thursday as I'm recording this, but yeah, it hasn't been canceled yet. But basically, don't hold your breath. This fight might not even happen. Perez has pulled out of more fights that he's been scheduled for than he's actually fought in the UFC. And even if he does make it to this fight, I pretty much see it being a blowout. I really don't see where Perez wins this fight. I see Nicolau being better everywhere. I see him being the better striker. He's definitely the better grappler. Perez is probably a better wrestler technically, but statistically, Nicolau even has the advantage there as well. So don't see where Perez is going to win this fight. Perez has awful grappling defense as well. And I do think Nicolau should be able to force the grappling exchanges early. And so I do see him being able to lock something up. Most of Perez's losses have been by submission. Really, I think Perez's best chance is to get this fight later on and kind of just out volume Nicolau, but I really don't even see that working out for him. Really one-way traffic for me in this fight. If you look, Perez, I'm not sure that he even has a win over a flyweight that's still on the roster at this point. Like I said, he's pulled out of so many fights that he fights so infrequently. So just going back and looking at his UFC wins right now, he beat Carlos John de Thomas, definitely no longer here. Eric Shelton, no longer here. Jose Shorty Torres is good, but he's no longer here. Mark De La Rosa, no longer here. Jordan Espinoza, no longer here. Hussier Formiga, no longer here. His last win was over Hussier Formiga, and that was in 2020. So what is this guy doing headlining a UFC card? It's really wild. a guy that you can't even trust to show up for the fight, who hasn't won a fight in over 4 years, is headlining. Nicolau all day here. Pretty much bet the house on it. Give me Nick for the official pick, Matheus Nicolau by submission in the first round. And that's a wrap for this episode of the MMA Oracles podcast. As always, I appreciate you so much if you listened to the whole thing. If you could like, share, subscribe, and follow, that would be amazing. You can find me at the MMA Oracles on pretty much all socials. Thank you. Yes. Let's get straight into some of the locks for this card. As for my locks, I do have James on top. Really don't see him losing to this guy, Taco Padilla. The guy's coming in on short notice. He's basically like I said, he's a bum. He's kind of dangerous. He is a finisher, but he's only finishing other bums. So I do really like Lontop as a prospect. So I think he's really going to outclass him and put him away there. Victor Henry as well. I do think Yahya is kind of over the hill. That one is probably not the most risky of my locks, but second most for sure. I think, there is a chance that Yahya holds on to him for 15 minutes and doesn't allow Henry to get anything going, but I don't really see it. Like I said, I just think Yahya is washed at this point, and I think Henry will be able to exploit that. Ryan Spann, like I said, he's got a really clear path to victory. If he puts Guskov on the floor, it should be over. If you get submitted by Volkan Oezdemir, you can definitely get submitted by Ryan Spann. So hopefully he does that. Hopefully his fight IQ is there. Hopefully his defense is there. That is definitely the most risky lock on here, but he definitely has all the tools. He really needs this win as well, and I expect him to get it done. Finally, Matheus Nicolau. Like I said, bet the house on this guy. Alex Perez hasn't won a fight since 2020. He's, super injury prone. The fight might not even happen. And if it does, really don't see what he has to offer against Matheus Nicolau. So those are my locks. As for my parlay, if you can find a bet on James on top, throw him in there as well. But go ahead and throw all 4 of those locks. I wasn't able to find where I bet odds on Lon Top to get him in there. So I do have Victor Henry, Ryan Spann, and Matheus Nicolau in a parlay. Gives you plus 188 odds. I'm sure Lon Top can add a little extra on there as well. Underdogs for the card, only one for this one, going Gabriel Benitez. I do think he'll be able to pull off that win. There is definitely some other underdogs here that have value, though. If you feel strongly going the other way, I wouldn't blame you. As for what fights on this card are any good, really not many. There's not really any good fights on this card. I honestly might not even watch them. This is a bad card. This is probably the worst card of the year so far. Hopefully it's all uphill from here and all the cards will be better, because this one is rough. One of the fights I am probably looking forward to is that Tim Means Uros Medic fight. Other than that, not a good card. That is a wrap for me. That is all I got for this one. So thank you again for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, follow at the MMA Oracles on everything, and I will see you on the next one.